Thank you for joining us for this important interview. David Cullier, such an incredible job in exposing the truth about anti-Semitism. I think he deserves an applause. You are one of the top leading figures when it comes to fighting anti-Semitism. What was the thing that surprised you the most during your job?
Firstly, thanks for inviting me. There's a lot of people here. I think the thing that has surprised me, and I've been doing this a long time now, is that it's far worse than we actually believe that it is. I mean, we take the recent BBC documentary. We go after them sometimes because they make a mistake with a headline or they've interviewed the wrong person. But the truth is, from the start of the supply chain, the information supply chain in Gaza, to whether it's the BBC or CNN or Guardian, the entire supply chain is toxic. It's working. What's happening is not an accident, it's a feature of the problem. They are there and they are deliberately distorting the news.
They are deliberately.
It's absolutely deliberate. They're taking this from Gaza. Now, we should know, and every intelligent person knows, that every single thing that comes out of Gaza is Hamas propaganda. And yet it's turning up on the pages either of the newspapers or on the BBC or on Sky News or CNN or the NYT every single day. So yes, it has to be deliberate.
Yes. I mean, if you compare the anti-Semitism today in the UK, but also generally in Europe compared to 20 years ago, what is the percentage of anti-Semitism today, again, compared, decades ago?
Okay, the first thing we have to understand is the anti-Semitism didn't start on October the 7th. It's been around for a long time. I remember reading a book in about 1993 by David Bar-Ilan called Eye on the Media, which was looking at media distortion then. The biggest differences that we have in the West today, one is the rise of the Islamist communities in Europe, and the other is the left jumping off the progressive cliff. And it's the combination of these two. But we have to understand as well, we're not talking about just people or communities. These people have jobs. The Islamists, they work in media, they work in the NGOs, they work in schools, they work in universities. And this is driving, not just in the media, but across the board, anti-Semitism on a scale that we have never seen before, well, not never seen before, but recently in Europe.
When you worked in your job, in your battle against what happened in the BBC, were you afraid?
There have been moments, but no, I mean, look, it's a job that has to be done. We have to stand up, we have to be proud, and we have to fight these lies every single place that they turn up. We must be in every single room that they are, challenging them every step of the way.
But how can we do it? I mean, you're saying that they are everywhere, in the media, in the most powerful platforms. How can we do it when they are in those key places?
Look, we don't have a choice in this fight. We didn't choose it. We're here. This is the fight that's in front of us. We shouldn't question ourselves. We shouldn't let other people define us. We shouldn't let other people tell us who we can talk to and who we can't talk to. We should be proud of who we are. We should fight. Just keep fighting, because we have no choice but to do so. We shouldn't question it.
You're a journalist today in Europe. Is it easier to go with the anti-Israel, anti-Zionist perception, or is it easier to be with the truth?
Media is just a part of wider society, so the same is true across the board. It's easier to be a teacher that hates Israel. It's easier to be an academic that hates Israel. It's easier to be a journalist that hates Israel. Far easier, yes.
What was the event? What was the moment when you understood that you are going to expose what's going on in the BBC?
Well, I've been on the BBC for a long time. They produced this documentary. It came out about 9 o'clock on a Monday evening, I immediately started looking to see who the people were. And the child they'd used, the narrator of this BBC documentary, I spent a few hours trying to get to the bottom of his identity. And about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, it was a sleepless night, about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I realized this child, the child that the BBC had used as the narrator, was a child of a key Hamas official. So basically the BBC had taken public funded money and handed it to a Hamas family.
And when you realized that, what was your first thinking?
Okay, my first thinking, I sent messages at about 1 o'clock in the morning. I've got them on my WhatsApp, where all I did was OMG with exclamation marks, because I was still working on it, but I knew I had them. And I knew that this time, the issue with this one, and why it is so unique, is that it's the entire supply chain. They failed. The BBC's failure on this one is so catastrophic. It covers every single part of the information supply chain, going all the way up to the top BBC executives.
And what was the BBC first reaction?
Well, their first reaction was just to stutter and stumble and mumble. They realised quite quickly they were in trouble. And it took them several days to take the document. We actually got them. They didn't come out with a half apology. They've taken the documentary down. They're now investigating to see what happened. And even when they come back, because they're not going to come back with a response that's going to be strong enough for us, when they finally come back after doing the investigations, we need to push them and have a very serious conversation about what has gone so wrong with the with the British state broadcaster.
But did you see an evolution in the way that they are handling this event?
Well, not this event. I mean, in evolution, we see a progressively deteriorating BBC over the years. The other issue we have to address is that so many of our journalists today used to work for places like Al Jazeera. If you employ a lot of ex-Al Jazeera staffers, your own product is eventually going to start looking like Al Jazeera.
But do you think today, the BBC, after what you did, do you think they are more responsible?
I think they're going to... No, I don't think much has changed because it's the institution. They don't want to change. They know they've been caught. And the problem is their product is the product. It's what they want to push out. They want to push out anti-Israel propaganda, and that is what they push out on a daily basis.
But where does it come from? This desire to push and to promote anti-Israel propaganda?
Well, it comes from, you have the hard left mindset. So on the one hand, and this is not just the BBC, you can look at NGOs like Amnesty have made the same mistake. They employ hard left progressives on the one hand, and on the other hand they also employ Islamists. These are the people that are pushing the content. If these are the people that are pushing the content, we should not be surprised at the information that's coming out.
And do you feel that your work has an influence not only on the BBC but also, on other media platforms?
I hope so. It's not just me. There are others fighting, but we have to pick them up every time they make a mistake. We have to pick them up every time they lie. We have to take the journalists that they're using and we have to expose them as the anti-Semites that they are. We have to turn around, when they hold up these doctors in Gaza and say this is a doctor, we have to turn around and say, you don't become the head of a hospital in Gaza unless you are connected to Hamas or Islamic Jihad, and we have to do it every time they write an article.
I have to ask you, do you think that for us it's a foreign media platforms, are they relying on Israeli media platforms?
Apart from Haaretz? You see, this is the problem. The problem is that we have the BBC's best friend and the Guardian's best friend and the New York Times' best friend and Amnesty International's best friend is Haaretz newspaper every time. No? So yes, they don't want to know about anything else because all they have to do is hold up Haaretz, and they know Haaretz is going to be saying exactly what they want they want to be saying.
And what is the influence of the BBC, for example, about other media platforms?
And here we have the big problem. Why the BBC is different is because the BBC is the gold standard. Everybody relies on the BBC. The BBC does more damage than any other media platform. When it publishes something, the thing is reposted, always goes viral. whatever it is. So I believe personally that the BBC has done more to spread anti-Semitism in the United Kingdom than any other outlet.
And if you can elaborate about the connection as you see it between the media platforms, the BBC, to the politics, to the Labour Party, to other movements in the UK.
Well, it is a network, you're right. And I mean, they've been called the community of the good. You know, so they see themselves as being ethically and morally superior to everybody else. So anybody that isn't part of their little network is excluded. Everybody who doesn't agree with what they say is either an Islamophobe. They start making up words. The new word is anti-Palestinian racist, for example. But they make up these words. Everybody is far right, everybody is a racist. But within their own network, it all works. They're all connected. So yes, the BBC, well, the Labour Party would be relying on the BBC and on The Guardian and outlets like that, basically as part of its own propaganda campaigns.
And yeah, I mean, on October 7, given everything you say, I mean, the anti-Semitism in those media platforms didn't begin yesterday. But in October 7, you weren't surprised from what happens in the street of London?
No, because this isn't, it has, I mean, I was surprised by October the 7th, you know, but look, what we're seeing, they've been working on for decades. It's been I mean, they went for academia first, I think. So we ended up with universities rotten to the core, academia that teaches students. Sorry, get that?